Alright everyone, it's time to talk about a modern American mythology, which is Donald Trump the fascist. And of course, fascism being effectively the fusion of, usually very authoritarian, state power and corporate power. They form sort of a complex, one hand washes the other. In some systems, it's more the state controls the corporate power and uses it as a puppet. In fascism, it's more close to parody or the corporate body, like as an oligarchic sort of movement, affecting the state effectively. State capitalism and things like that. Donald Trump is not a fascist. If anything, the neoliberal and neoconservative globalist hawks are much closer to what would be generally agreed upon as the definition of fascistic. We see this with the fusion of state and corporate power on multiple levels right now. We see, for example, the corporate media explicitly and even braggadocially admitting to the fact that they're working with the White House to put out economic messaging. It's more than just the economic messaging. Behind the scenes, they're coordinating on much more than that, I guarantee. We can see the news articles for ourselves. The proof is in the pudding. But they even self-admit to that aspect of their reporting. They are literally creating state-funded propaganda, in part using taxpayer money because the people coordinating with them are paid a salary on the back of U.S. taxpayers. We're actually paying to be lied to right now in the United States as far as the corporate press goes, the legacy media, as I will always, of course, call it. That's just one aspect of it, though. Look at the censorship apparatus. Because the modern public square takes place in the online world, we've seen the U.S. government again worryingly using taxpayer money and public resources to go after companies disparately. The SEC, for instance, going after Kraken, going after Odyssey, but leaving other companies that do the crypto shuffle alone. We've seen that. Differential enforcement, again, the root of much evil within the U.S. so-called justice system. We've seen the Twitter files, now the YouTube files, which honk, of course, on a YouTube video I can't even explain in full detail. You can look it up for yourself. Had to make a new tech exclusive about something that specifically pertained to YouTube, because YouTube wouldn't allow me to talk about it and elaborate further about their misinfo policies. Yeah, it's clown world, as you can tell. By the way, you can probably tell I'm hyper-caffeinated today as well. It's a good time. It's also snowed a shit ton last night. I'm going to be making snowballs the whole way to the store and back. Anyway, getting back to, I'm sorry for the little rants, but, it's the morning. I'm not quite caffeinated enough. I need about 10 energy drinks. Trump is not a fascist. Long story short, the elements of fascism that we can actually quantify, again, think about a duck. It's got a beak, it's got wings, it's got the little flippery feet, the little tail feathers and stuff. Okay, if you've got, therefore, feathery wings, you've got status, a semi-aquatic bird. It's got a beak, and so forth. If you describe each individual component of the duck, eventually you have fleshed out the duck. You have painted a picture of a duck, but people will know what you're talking about. You've just been more obtuse in doing so. Since we have multiple aspects of literal fascism, textbook encyclopedic fascism, currently in order in the United States, we can say that system at least is adjacent to fascism. You have the censorship, you have the massive regulation, you have the disproportionate enforcement of law, you have the persecution complex, you have the state-coordinated media releases, effectively nothing more than literal paid propaganda. You have enough of the elements of fascism to say it's close to a fascist system. Donald Trump is the opposite. He's saying we need to go back to a soft reset, early 80s sort of morning in America model, in which that is much less. It's not a perfect system. I'm a classical liberal. I would go 10 times further than Donald Trump wants to go. But the idea of protecting your workforce by defending your border, reducing the regulatory burden, reducing taxation, not disarming people, not telling them what they can or cannot say or think, and preventing them from being, again, in a state-funded manner, unfortunately in some cases, indoctrinated in public educational facilities is the opposite of fascism. Donald Trump is the anti-fascist who's running. And people don't even understand this because they've gotten so used to the false terminology that's employed, again, by state propaganda. All of these stories that claim that Donald Trump is going to upend democracy, end the republic, and destroy liberty, they're paid for by your money, and they're coordinated with directly by the goddamn White House itself. This is, again, for economic news, literally, explicitly admitted to. It went right over people's heads. Oliver Darcy came out last February and explicitly stated that he was coordinated, CNN and other news groups were meeting with the White House to try to figure out a way to put out economic messages with a smiley face. At that time, the economy was even worse than it is now, so keep in mind what they were trying to defend on behalf of Team Biden. It was explicitly admitted to. Do you think it doesn't go further than that? That's just what they felt comfortable admitting to. It's sort of like with the Twitter files. When they first came out and said, oh, no shit, the US government decided to coerce Twitter into censoring law-abiding political speech on Twitter. It didn't surprise me at all. And then what did I say? And I guarantee this happened on every other mainline site also. Oh, and in the meantime, we find out similar things are happening on Instagram and Facebook. Who cares? Nobody gets the news there unless they're really fucked up in the head at this point. Oh, and YouTube. Oh, yeah, and they keep pressuring new tech sites as well. They've tried to sue Rumble. Rumble launching a bunch of lawsuits of its own lately. They sued Odyssey. They've gone after Gab. They crushed Parler. They keep doing this. It goes over people's heads. They think that it's just, it's a handful of economic news is what was put out to the public. No, that's fascism. The new Project Fear, you remember that from the Brexit days? Oh my God, if we have Brexit, our economy will collapse. We'll become a third world country and shit like that they were spewing at the time. We now have a U.S. Project Fear to try to convince voters for two reasons that Donald Trump is an evil dictator wannabe. Number one, to try to stop him from being elected, and number two, to try to get some crazy to shoot him. That is, I spoke about this yesterday on a New Tech exclusive. The legacy media's messaging is very, very transparent. They want Donald Trump to be assassinated. They don't want to have to deal with him anymore. If they are implying that Donald Trump is an uprising dictator who is going to destroy the entire country and put everyone in chains. Some nut out there has probably already got a manifesto pre-written in case Trump comes to town. Because there are nuts out there. Well, we see it all the time. People are always doing violent, crazy shit. You think this owner, the mentality to shoot up a school, wouldn't also take a shot at a bunch of politicians that are standing up on a stage? It's just that they have better security. It's not a gun-free zone because the Secret Service is there, so it makes it a little bit more difficult. Now, there's a reason that we do that, by the way. We protect our politicians better than we protect our own children. There's something to be said in that, I think. I think there's a moral lesson involved there. No, but Trump is not a fascist. I'll be voting for him. I'm perfectly comfortable with him. And again, there's already a presidential track record there. You don't see much fascism there. You see a reduction in authoritarianism by and large. There were certain mistakes that were made. Some of which I can mention on YouTube, some of which I can't. Honk honk. You probably know what medical topics I'm talking about. That being said, everyone makes mistakes, even sometimes pretty big ones. But there was no element of fascism under the Trump White House the first time around, and under a second term, which I really, really hope he gets. I don't think you have anything to worry about. I think you'll see a return to reasonably sane government. Not perfect, but still better than what we've got right now. Not that that's saying much, honestly. That's about all. Peace out.